Hi, everyone. My name is Riley. I'll be running today's webinar that's going to be covering the online forms feature within Blueprint OMS. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here if you want to just give me one quick moment. Alrighty. So I've gone ahead and shared my screen here, so you should be able to see our Blueprint schedule up on the screen. I do have a colleague, one of our other training specialists. Her name is Emma. She'll be maintaining the chat, so if at any point you have any questions as we move along, feel free to just ask those questions in the chat, and then Emma will be able to answer them. And once we get to the end of the meeting, we can have an open session for those questions as well. So I'm just going to wait about one more minute here just to make sure that we get everyone in the meeting that's registered, and then we can begin. All right, so it looks like we have a decent amount of people in the webinar here today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started just with an overview of the online forms feature. So with the online forms, your clinic is able to collect info from either prospective or existing patients. So the information that a prospect or a patient provides on these online forms will then be reflected automatically in a new patient file or in the patient's existing file. The forms, once they're submitted back to the clinic, can be reviewed, processed, and archived by clinic staff. These online form requests can be sent to email addresses of prospects, patients, as well as patients' alternate contacts, or they can be sent to appropriately configured clinic tablets to be completed at the clinic. And we'll go over all of this information today. So your clinic can use online forms in a number of different ways. So online forms can be associated with appointment types so that the creation of an appointment of the right type or a user's verification of an incoming online booking of the right type will prompt the sending of the appropriate online forms. From the patient drop-down menu, we can send online forms, and we can also send these online through the online forms module. Finally, each online form in your system will have its own URL and iframe HTML, which will allow you to distribute the form directly online for respondents to find, fill out, and submit. This capability can, for example, be used for lead capture by call center agents who won't require Blueprint OMS user accounts in order to access the online forms. So I'm going to go ahead and show you all how we can enable the online forms feature. And for those of us that have just joined, I want to make a note that I do have my colleague, Emma. She is in the chat. So as we move along, if you have any questions, feel free to add those questions in the chat, and she'll be responding. And then at the end of the webinar, we will have a time for a Q&A as well. So in order to enable the online forms feature, we'll first want to go into our setup menu at the bottom left-hand side of the screen. When I click into the setup menu, I have my online forms feature listed here. I would click on my online forms, and I would go into my settings. So as you can see here, my online forms are already enabled. I'm going to go ahead and disable these so we can run through the process of enabling them together. Once I click on Enable Online Forms, it's going to bring me to the Online Forms Setup Wizard. This is a super quick and easy process. You'll just want to follow the steps to configure the settings. I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. It's going to ask me to input my sending email address. Typically, we advise clinics to use a general email address for the clinic that is not specific to one user. For example, info@weatherfieldhearing.com or something along those lines. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and click on Finish. And now my online forms are enabled. I can see my default form expiration in days. So if I were to send out an online form and the patient never completed it, it would expire 30 days after. You have full control over when you want these online forms to expire. And then you can convert quick add to patient behavior with a prompt, always or never. You can always take a look at any of these little info bubbles here in your system to get more information. We can also take a look at our email templates. These are customizable on your end. So for example, our online forms request, these we have merge fields listed. If I go ahead and click on Edit, we can see that my template is going to show the patient's given name, their last name, and then it's going to ask them to complete the following forms, which will list these forms, and then it's going to have the clinic's information. If I go ahead and select Update, it's going to save my template. Like I said, you have full control over if you want to add in any default message to make it more personal or more professional. That's totally up to you. So now I'm going to go ahead and I am going to go into my online forms module so we can take a quick overview of what the online forms module looks like. So here I have a location dropdown where I'm able to filter between locations. I have a status dropdown as well where I can filter through my incomplete, submitted and completed, sign on tablet, and error. As we can see, I have one online form that was sent out 1 day ago. I can see from the status that the patient viewed this online form, but it's incomplete, so they never submitted it. These status icons are really nice because if you send out an online form to a patient and you see that they either never viewed it or they viewed it and didn't submit it, you can always reach out to that patient and push them a little bit to get that form back to you. So as mentioned earlier, there are a few different ways that we can send out online forms. Blueprint has a number of standard online forms that we have created for you that you can send out to patients, and we'll take a look at those in a moment. But you also are able to create your own online forms and upload them into Blueprint to send out to patients. If you want more information about that, just send a note in the chat and we can send you that necessary information via email so that you can learn more about customizing your own forms and sending those to patients. So as mentioned, we have 3 different ways to send online forms. One is directly within the online forms module. The only, what I would say as a downside of doing it here is that technically it's not going to be linked to a patient file. So if I were to click on Create Request, here is a list of all of my online forms that I can send out to patients. If I select these forms, let's say for example the COVID-19 pre-survey, I can select Next, and it's going to ask me to type in the recipient's first name, the recipient's last name, their email address, and I can even enter in a custom email message. So as mentioned previously, the only downside of this is that the online form isn't going to be linked to the patient when I send it out. So I would have to enter in all this information. In cases where you have a patient that is not in your database currently, usually this is how you'll want to send out that form. But say for an example, I have a patient that I want to send out some online forms to. So let's go ahead and pull up a patient here. I'm going to pull up my patient Ava Barker. I can go to the patient drop-down menu in the top left-hand side of the screen and select Send Online Forms. So when I do it this way, I'm going to send out the demographic intake form to Ava. I'm going to select Next, and this information is already going to be populated in here for me. So in the case the patient's email address will populate here, I'm going to go ahead and change that to mine so that we can see what it looks like when the patient receives this online form. Like I said earlier, we can add an email message. Please give the clinic a call if you have any issues submitting the following forms. Thank you. And I can also change that link expiration date as well. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and click Send. It's going to let me know that the online forms have been sent to the patient. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my email here. So this is what the online form is going to look like. It will have your clinic's logo in the top left, and it will have the clinic's information here. We can see that it's addressed to the patient. It's going to ask the patient to complete the forms. And we can see that custom message that I left here. Please give the clinic a call if you have any issues submitting the following forms. It will also have your clinic's information down here at the bottom of the screen. So the patient would go in and they would select Review Forms. It's going to load the forms and is going to prompt that patient to enter in their birth date. This is for security reasons. So in this case, I don't remember what Ava's birth date is, so let me just take a look here. It looks like it's 3/9/1945. I'm going to go back into my email here. I'm going to click on Submit. So it's going to load the form for me. Might take a moment here. And then I'm going to select Fill Out Form. So since Ava is already an established patient with my clinic, all of her information is actually going to auto-populate here because I sent it from her patient file. So say, for example, Ava actually moved and she wants to update this information. She can go in and change the address if she would like. So maybe it's changed to 123 Happy Lane in Minneapolis. She would fill out all of the information as needed. And this is the demographic intake form. So it will have the personal information, the alternate contact information, the primary insurance information, secondary, that referral, and it will prompt the user to sign. So all of the information that this patient will fill out on the online form will actually update the Details tab, and we'll go through how that happens. So I'm going to go ahead and sign the form. At this point, we can see at the bottom here that everything has been filled out as needed. Certain fields can be required on online forms, such as a signature, and most of the personal information, like the name, the address, date of birth, that information is typically required, but again, this can be customized. I'm going to go ahead and click on Submit. It's going to tell me that the form has been submitted, and I've completed all the forms so I can close out the tab. At this point, I'm going to close out the tab. I'm going to go back into Blueprint, and I'm going to go into my Online Forms module here. As we can see, there's a few status icons to the right. One, this red status icon is letting me know that I have one incomplete online form, and the green status icon is letting me know I have one submitted online form that I need to review. So that's Ava's form. If I click on the Online Forms module, here we can see today Ava Barker submitted her online form, and it's telling me that I need to process this form. So when processing the form, that is what will change the Details tab in the patient's file. So all I would need to do is click on my online form, select Process Request, and it's going to ask me to resolve discrepancies. So this is where we can see that the patient originally lived at this address, and she has since moved. So I'm going to take a look at the result. I can see it's 123 Happy Lane. I'm going to go ahead and select Finish. It's going to tell me that processing the online forms will update the patient's Details tab. Do you wish to proceed? I'm going to select Yes. And then it's going to ask me if I want to archive the online forms. This question is referring to if I want the online forms to be saved into the patient's Documents tab. I do, just in case I need to look at it again in the future, and this will remove it from the Online Forms module. So I'm going to click on Yes. It's going to let me know that the patient has now been updated. If we take a look at her Details tab, we'll see now that her address has changed from 123 Happy Lane. This is going to apply to any information that the patient changed. For example, their insurer, their phone number, their email address. Once you process these changes, that's going to update that in the patient's Details tab. So it's nice to save time. You don't have to print out any forms. We're able to save paper, and it's just a more efficient process. Say, for an example, a patient came in and I had sent them the online forms, but they had a little bit of trouble filling them out at home. All I would need to do is, if I had a tablet set up at the clinic, I could actually send these forms to the tablet, hand the tablet to the patient for them to fill out in clinic. So in order to do this, you'll just want to make sure that first you do have a tablet set up. So in the Setup menu, we're going to go into Online Forms, and we're going to take a look at our Online Forms tablets. So we can see here that I have 2 clinic locations. I'm going to go ahead and select my Weatherfield. I can see I've got my Weatherfield Samsung Galaxy all set up already. If you were to go ahead and create new, say for an example, Weatherfield iPad, I would click on Create, and it's going to give me the option to copy URL. So what I would want to do here is click Copy URL. I would email this URL to any email address that is accessible on the iPad, and then all I would need to do from there is just bookmark this URL, because basically what you're doing is bookmarking the online forms portal so that when you send a form to the tablet, you'll open up the tablet, click on that bookmark, and you'll see the online form there available to you. So I'm going to go ahead and click Update here. Patient comes in, says they couldn't fill out the online form at home. All I would need to do is just either click on Create Request here at the bottom of the screen or pull up that patient, as we mentioned previously, because there are a few different ways that you can send these out. So let's say for an example, we've got Seth Armstrong. He comes in. I want to send his online form to the tablet. All I need to do is I need to click on the patient dropdown, Send Online Forms, select the forms that I want Seth to fill out, maybe the medical intake form. I would click on Next, and instead of sending it to email, I would select View on Tablet. I can select the location that the patient is at, and I can select my tablet. So I could select any of these tablets that I have available. I would click on Send. It will let me know that the online forms have been sent. On my tablet, I would go into that portal that's bookmarked. The patient would be able to fill it out, submit it, and that online form would come back to us in the Online Forms module. A couple other things that I will touch on is just taking a look at the online forms that are currently available to you. So if I double click on my Setup menu and I go into Templates and Forms, I can filter my template type to Online Form. Any form that has the B to the left is the online forms that are available to you to send out. As mentioned before, you can create custom forms to send out to patients. I did see a couple individuals in the chat that want more information on that, so we'll make sure to get that out to you. But one of the ones that I want to point out here is this HIPAA and insurance payment consent. If I double click on the form, it's going to allow me to see what it looks like. This is just a blank form, so when you send this out to the patient, it would have your clinic logo and your clinic information listed here. But this is just kind of an overview. So if you ever wanted to take a look at what forms we have available, you're more than welcome to go into Setup, Templates, and Forms to find a list of these forms. You can also always download copies of these forms. So say, for example, you liked the HIPAA and insurance payment consent, but maybe you wanted to change some of the wording. All you would need to do is right-click on the form, download a copy. You can save this to anywhere on your computer. You'd open it up in a PDF editor, make the changes that you'd need, and then re-upload it into Blueprint using the Upload button at the bottom of the screen. As previously mentioned, you can also send these to patients via email by right-clicking and Copy URL. If I were to copy this URL, I would just go ahead and paste this into an email to the patient, and they'd be able to click on it, fill it out, and send it back to the clinic. Or I can copy iframe HTML. If I do that, I could send the HTML to my website designer, and my website designer could go ahead and link this online form to my website. So if a patient was visiting my site and they wanted to fill out, for example, the Contact Us form, this is a really nice one that you could have on your website. I'll pull that up for reference. Basically, a patient would submit if they wanted to learn more about your clinic. So this is a great one to put on your website. Like I said, you would just right-click, copy iframe HTML, and send that right on over to your website designer. Finally, we'll take a look at how we can associate certain online forms with specific event types. We'll want to go into Setup. We can go into Scheduling, Event Types. I would right-click on the appointment that I want to associate online forms with. So say, for an example, the Clean and Check. I can click on Edit Details, and I have all of my online forms here available to me to send out to the patient. So this is a very common one. Some clinics want every single appointment to automatically send out the COVID-19 pre-visit survey. So if I check this off, I can select Update. Then if I were to go to my schedule and I were to book an appointment, let's say for tomorrow at 10 a.m., we'll pick Jennifer Aniston. If I were to select Clean and Check as my appointment type, just need to select my provider. Once I select Create Event, I'm going to get my Send Online Forms dialog box. It's already going to have the COVID-19 pre-visit survey marked. If I wanted to add any others, I could do so. I would click on Next. This patient does not have an email address on file, which is why it's prompting me to enter that information in. So I could put in that email, click on Send. Now the appointment's been booked and the online form has been sent automatically. That is about all the information that I have to cover about the online forms feature. So if we want to open up the time for Q&A, if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those. All right. Well, if that's all that we've got today, I appreciate you all attending, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you have any questions about the information that was covered, feel free to always give us a call at our support line or send in a ticket by going to the Help drop-down menu, Create Support Ticket, and we'd be more than happy to provide further information. Heather, Caitlin, and Jen, I'll make sure to pass on some more information to you three in regards to those custom forms. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your day.